Hello everyone, welcome to Leslie's developmental economic class. And today we're going to talk about the development of a specific country, Haiti. And we all know that development is a rather multi-dimensional concept. It's not only the economic growth we talk about in macroeconomics. It's about like as Amartya Sen said, to promote the real freedom of people, like reducing poverty, like providing education and healthcare, and guarantee civil liberties, and guarantee the opportunity for civic participation and maintenance of law and order, etc., etc. And to measure the development of a specific country, we have different measures. But before we go into that, let's first look at some of the important details about the country Haiti. And this is a relatively simple world map, and I draw myself. It's not very it's not very fine resoluted, or just a bit sketch of my work. And Haiti is located in the Caribbean Sea between the North America and the South America. And this is where Haiti lies. The country is more like the shape I draw on the paper, and its capital is Port-au-Prince. And it has long been a French colony, which eventually won its independence in 1804, and it's a country whose population mainly descended from the African slaves. So that explains why 95% of its population are black people. And next is it faces a lot of economic, political, and social problems. So let's go into the developmental part. And if there is a first thing that you can think about when you're measuring a country's development, the first thought that comes to my mind is that Human Development Index, because it's human and it's development, so it's directly about the measuring the development. And Human Development Index measures how successfully the countries succeeds in achieving three goals: long and healthy life, improved education, and a decent standard of living. And these three measures are respectively measures by GDP per capita, elder literacy rate, and life expectancy at birth. And the three indicators together give a figure of Human Development Index. And Haiti has an Human Development Index of 0.483. As we know that HDI ranges from 0 to 1, so 0.483 is not a very high number compared with other countries. Actually, Haiti is ranked 163rd among the 188 countries on the Human Development Index countries. So it is poorly developed, and it is at the bottom of the Human Development Index rate list. And so we can see from the Human Development Index that Haiti is not under not among the very well developed countries. So let's look more specifically into some of the single indicators. As Human Development Index is a composite index which can take into consideration that a lot of different factors, single indicators can give us a more specific and more straight look at some of the aspects of specific aspect of economic development. And there are mainly three categories of develop single indicators: the financial measures, health measures, and education measures. The financial measures are mainly measures that measures the economic growth of the country, such as GDP per capita and the GNI per capita. We all know that GDP per capita is the total amount of assets in a country regardless regardless of who own the productive assets divided by the number of population, and in comparison, GNI per capita is the income earned by a country's or factors of production regardless of where they are. So these are two contrasting figures. However, that these figures may be sometimes inaccurate when comparing between countries. And for example, if you buy a hamburger and buy a Big Mac in the United States, it may cost about like $7 or $8. But if it's in less well developed in the countries, it may be much cheaper than that. So that for every dollar, the purchasing parity or the amount of goods it can buy differs from country to country. So we need our universal value. That is, so economists calculate the purchasing power parity, which is PPP, and use it to adjust the GDP per capita and GNI per capita figures. So the GDP per capita at PPP is 1800. So the GNI per capita at PPP is 1760. So comparing the two figures, we can see that GDP per capita at PPP is higher than that of GNI. So what causes the difference? There may be one reason. Maybe there are a lot of foreign assets in Haiti, like the ones direct inflows into the country by foreign direct investment or some other investments made by foreign banks or institutions or companies. So health measure. And we have encountered one health measure before, that is life expectancy at birth. That measures the average living number of years that a person can live, numbers of person can live, and from the time they are born. So there are many factors may lead to the differences in life expectancy at girls, such as clean water, enough sanitation, and access to education so that they can prevent from HIV or malaria, such diseases. So the life expectancy at Haiti is 63.8. It's about 64 for the whole population, 61.2 for male, and 66.4 for female. So we know that in developed countries, the figure is mainly above 80, age 80. So this is not very high. So the health conditions in the Haiti is not very good. And in fact, after the earthquake, a lot of facilities and infrastructures for health, institutions for health are destroyed, like hospitals, and clean water sources were cut, and they do not have enough assets for sanitation, so the life expectancy goes down. And another health measure is infant mortality rate, that measures the number of babies that died within 1 year from their birth per 1,000 babies. So the infant mortality rate for Haiti is 48.2 per 1,000 child. That is a relatively high figure, which again reflects the poor health conditions in Haiti. And the factors affecting the infant mortality rate are mostly the same as that of the life expectancy at birth. So the health measures indicators says that the health conditions in Haiti is not very good. And lastly, it's the health education measures. Education measures, we have elder literacy rate, that is the proportion of elders that is above age 15 that can either that both read or write. So the elder literacy rate for Haiti is 60.7, well, which means a lot of elders can't read and write. which is the figure is again at the bottom of the countries in the world. And another measure is the net ratio in primary school education enrollment. So this measures the proportion of students who are in school that are off school age divided by the total number of students that are people that are of school age. The enrollment ratio is 88%. 88%. It's a high. It has been greatly improved throughout the years, but it means there are still a lot of people who can't get appropriate primary education during their youth. And there are other measures other than the three big categories like gender. Unfortunately, we can't find the gender-related development index on the World Bank statistics, but we can find something that is gender-related GDP per capita. And this figure for women in Haiti is $1,379. $79 for women and $1966 for men. So we can see the men get a lot more higher income than women in this country, so that the empowerment of women in this country is not very common or popular. Also, some other things can tell us about the conditions in the country, like dependency ratio, and the dependency ratio is 62.3. So a person at the age of between 15 and 64 have to raise 0.62 persons in average, and the child dependency ratio is much higher than the elder dependency ratio, because there are not many older people in this country. It's a relatively young country. However, the childbirth rate is high, so that the population increases very fastly, and usually the family have a lot of children to raise and to nourish. This is the situation in Haiti. So if we look into the poverty, there are again no statistics for poverty for the World Bank value. However, it is estimated over 2.5 million living under the national income poverty line of US $1.25 per day, and more than 6 million out of 10.4 million Haitians living under the national poverty line of United States dollar of 2.42 today. So this is a relatively poor country, we can say. And it is also one of the most unequal countries. We looked through Gini index. It has a Gini index of 0.61, which is among the highest of our countries. So it's both poor and both unequal. There may be a lot of corruption happened in this country, and the country is suffering from national debt and depreciation of currency, and most of the population relies on the agriculture factor for assistance. And what is worse, there is earthquake happened in 2010, so destroyed a lot of communities, and the population suffered greatly from the earthquake. And the housing was also bad. Many houses are 1 floor high, square and small buildings made of materials available in the nearby area. No morning, and also there is no running water or induced sewage system. So the sanitation system is poor. And there are a lot of current issues in Haiti, like poverty, food insecurity, low food production, political instability, and there are diseases like cholera and AIDS. To address these problems, the UNDP developed some strategies like improving infrastructures, promoting education and healthcare, and there are emergency response, and to develop some clean energy sources like the solar energy or the tide energy, and they want to make Haiti move towards a more sustainable economy. So let's wait and see what Haiti economy will bring us in the future. And although it is still at the bottom of the development list of the world, however, we can foresee its future is now getting better and better, and I'm sure that it will become better in the future. And thank you very much. I'm Leslie. If you like my video, please like me on the website and follow my subscriptions. Thank you.